I'm Sunny, and this is...
Hi, I'm Amy.
And we are here to give you the first edition of how to take your sheepdog from shabby to chic.
And this is Steve, our demo dog.
Hi, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
So how much growth is this?
This is about 4 months.
This is about 4 months. Okay.
Steve's a coat factory.
Yeah,
He's
well,
a coat factory?
He's a coat factory.
Okay. So is it not only long but also thick?
very thick.
It's very thick.
So when we're first looking at tackling a sheepdog, and
Feel free to ask questions, guys.
yeah, you can
Yeah.
feel free to ask questions. What we usually like to start with when we're brushing is clean hair, but we don't always get to do that. So the key about sheepdogs and trying to keep them mat free outside of the first 2 years of their life, because puppy coat creates all sorts of other issues, is to have clean hair or cleanish hair.
Okay,
So with-
question.
Yeah,
To interrupt.
yeah.
I heard that you don't want to get them wet.
When they're matted.
If they have any mats possibly, because you'll never get them out.
Because it makes the mats
and
tighter.
I've heard this clean hair versus brushing first, and my confusion is how do you get clean hair if you have to brush?
So I'm going to show you a trick that I use when I'm trying to get through, because you're right, you don't want to take a dog that hasn't been brushed and put him in a bathtub. You will have more work. I use what's called self-rinse. It comes in a container and you pour it into a spray bottle and you put it on the spray feature so you get a mist, a light mist. And so what I do before I get started, and you can stop me, Amy, if I'm saying anything you disagree with, but I spritz the dog with self-rinse, and then I will take just an old towel and I'll wipe the hair off. Some people will spray this while they're brushing if you're concerned about your dog getting overly wet when you do it, but you can wipe it off, but it helps get some of the oils off, and I feel like it also gives it a little bit moisture, making it easier to brush through. So a couple of the tools that we're using when we're brushing a dog, this is the pin brush. So you asked before about that specific brand. Okay. There are a lot of brands of pin brushes, so I don't want to say that one is
Just don't want to
better than
use the
another.
one with the balls on the end.
Yeah, so if you can
No
come
balls.
in, these have no balls. No balls. You
This
don't
one
want
has
balls.
Unlike you,
balls.
Steve.
Right.
See that? It
Balls
has the
is what
balls at the
causes
end.
the matting,
Yeah.
right?
It pulls at the hair and it hurts.
Okay.
Right.
It hurts. The balls pull at the hair.
How wet
Yep.
it's damp.
See,
That's barely
it's
damp.
barely damp.
Okay.
I spritz
You see that?
and then I wipe.
The balls at the end.
Oh, yes,
Those
I
are for
do.
Shih Tzus and Yorkies.
Oh,
and
drop-coated dogs.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we use the pin brushes without balls.
And the length of the pins?
I like the shorter ones for working on coats that might be matted or shorted coated.
The long ones are hard to get through. I don't have a long hair, but they come various sizes. I think this is a 20 millimeter or something like
Yeah.
that.
I've seen them even shorter.
Yes, it's a 20.
20 mil.
Okay.
I like the 20 millimeter because I think it gets down to their skin.
Okay.
So with a sheepdog, you always want to start with line brushing.
So you want to put a part down their hair
So if you
somewhere.
want to come here just so you can see, you start with a part somewhere. And you can see the skin. You always want to be able to see the skin. That is the key with line brushing. If you're brushing and it looks like that, you're not really
Down.
getting skin.
Down,
I know, you don't want to do this.
down.
Just shave me down. And you want to be able to see the skin. So you're always brushing. And when you're line brushing, you're just taking a little bit from the next
And
to
it's
create the
easier
next
on
line.
your body if you brush away from you rather than towards you.
Right, because if you brush
You're going to be
towards,
fatigued after you're done. You're going to be really tired.
and you're probably not going to get through the mats, because you can actually, he's not matted at all,
No.
but his coat is just sticking together a little bit in sections.
He's a little dirty.
Yeah, and that is kind of what we go back to. You want to try to have a clean coat whenever possible, but you need to start somewhere.
And so when you hold a brush, you hold it very lightly in your hand and you brush. You don't grab the brush and really hang on. It's not it's just lightly go over each layer, lightly, because
But
otherwise,
when a-
again, you're going to get really fatigued.
Well, there's a certain wrist action we're all taught, right?
Right. It's
Sonny,
all
you
in the
wanna-
wrist.
You want to show it even without the hair?
Yeah,
Just
so
a quick flick?
I do this and I flick up, typically. In other sections,
We're all flicking
yeah,
apparently.
we all flick. It's a
So you don't want to
Circular.
flick, or you do?
You do, you want to
wanna
flick. It's a light wrist section. Right, I'm showing you just to
okay.
exaggerate the motion. But when you're doing this, you're just taking small sections of hair to line brush.
And if you get a mat, if you reach a mat where there's a clump, you take your fingers and you break the clump apart first, and you just break it apart, and then you go through the brush and you brush it out.
The same flick motion.
The same motion, and sometimes you might have to grab the mat and just take small sections
kinda
of
tease it out.
hair. But you always, when you're taking out a mat, you never want to start at the base and pull.
It hurts.
You always want to start at the very edge of the mat and slowly but surely pick at it until you get all the way to the skin.
But taking it with your fingers and breaking it apart into pieces helps too. And then you take those little pieces and you brush out the mat. Take the piece and you brush out the mat.
Now-
Takes longer, but it doesn't hurt the dog, and it will not fatigue you either.
Now, if you're not needing to save every little piece of undercoat and your dog is a, normal pet and you want some quick tricks to get through that, would you use any other equipment pending?
I do. So I actually brought out two things that I will use from time to time. I like, and this is a personal preference thing, I have slickers that have the balls on the end. I use I know, these do have balls. It's because they, yeah, it's fine. It's because they are a little bit softer on their skin. So I will use these, I typically like to use these on puppies to get them used to brushing. As the dog gets older and is used to this feeling, I do transfer to a larger slicker. This is a large red slicker. It's not that soft. I use this sparingly on really large mats that are particularly difficult, and I only use this one on the body. I never like to use this on the face or the legs or the feet.
Why is that?
Because I feel it's too harsh, and it doesn't allow you to get into the crevices on their face and ears. The smaller ones allow you to get into armpits a little bit easier. I like them because I have tiny hands, so they're easier to navigate. This just gets you more real estate.
So you would basically, if you were just thinking, what do I need to be able to do this successfully, you would suggest 2 different size slickers.
I would suggest, you can get a general one, which I just didn't have with me. This is probably what I would say. This is like
That's
a
pretty
slicker
heavy
on
duty.
roids. Probably you don't need this. This is a really good general slicker. This particular one rotates, so
They
it's
don't make them
easier.
anymore.
Okay, so don't look for this one, but look for one of this size. It's in between. You can see the 3 sizes.
Got it.
Okay. The other tool that we will use is a large
Poodle
comb.
comb. They're called poodle combs.
Oh, poodle combs.
Some of us call them butt combs.
We call them
Whatever.
butt combs, poodle combs. This helps you get through a mat, and also this will pull out hair. So if I have a pretty bad mat and I'm having trouble with my fingers pulling it apart, I will take a mat and I will start to pick sections with this first to break it apart, and then come back in with my brush to get all the remnants out of it. And I will use it. You can comb through and line brush this way.
Yeah, if you want to rip out the undercoat so your dog doesn't have so much hair, the thickness, you can rip it out with this and do your line brushing with a comb.
And you see it starts to pull out a lot of undercoat, which makes it a little bit easier. But because of the space in between the teeth, you can still leave mats. So just because you think that you've pulled through a mat doesn't mean that it's actually gone. That's why you always go back over with a slicker
Or a brush.
or a brush after you've combed through.